The sharp clatter of her phone hitting the marble floor echoed through Victoria Harrington's penthouse as she stared at the screen, blocked on every platform by her own daughter. For the tech mogul who could acquire anything with a signature, the one thing money couldn't buy was forgiveness from the child she'd neglected while building her empire. The winter light cast long shadows across Victoria's face as she gazed out at the Manhattan skyline, her reflection ghost-like against the glass. Behind her, framed photos of corporate achievements lined the walls, but not a single picture showed her daughter Ellie smiling. Just formal portraits with forced grins and distant eyes. Something broke inside Victoria that day, something that couldn't be fixed with acquisitions or mergers. She made a decision that would either heal their relationship or destroy it forever. What would you do if the person you loved most in the world erased you from their life? Comment below, like and subscribe to our channel, and share your own experiences with forgiveness and family reconciliation. Victoria traced her finger along the edge of her desk. Glass and chrome, like everything else in her life, cold, transparent, hard. 20 years ago, she'd started Harrington Tech in a garage with nothing but student loan debt and a revolutionary algorithm. Now she commanded a view of Manhattan from the 87th floor, her name emblazoned on buildings across 3 continents. Ms. Harrington? Marcus appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. The Tokyo team is waiting for your decision on the merger. She waved him off. Tell them I need until morning. But you said this was urgent. Things change, Marcus. Her voice was brittle. My daughter has blocked me on everything. Every single platform. Marcus hesitated. In 7 years as her executive assistant, he'd never seen Victoria Harrington. Rattled. Maybe she just needs space. Space? Victoria laughed bitterly. She's had nothing but space from me. The truth hung between them, unspoken but acknowledged. Ellie's 16th birthday party. Victoria had attended via video call from a conference in Berlin. Her high school graduation. Victoria had arrived. For the final 15 minutes after closing a major acquisition, college move-in day, handled entirely by Marcus, while Victoria was in Silicon Valley securing Series C funding. Perhaps you could call her directly? Marcus suggested. Straight to voicemail. Victoria pulled up her calendar. What important moments did I miss recently? There must be something. Marcus scrolled through his tablet. Her psychology department. Honors ceremony was last month. Psychology. Victoria's head snapped up. She was supposed to be in business administration. She changed majors last year. Victoria sank into her chair. And no one told me. With respect, Ms. Harrington, no one needed to. Ellie posted about it extensively. She sent you an email about her decision. Victoria checked her email, finding the message buried under thousands of unread items. 7 months old. She'd never even opened it. The weight of absent years pressed down on her shoulders. Michael, her ex-husband, had warned her. You're building an empire at the cost of everything else, he'd said before leaving 5 years ago. Now he had a new wife, twin toddlers, weekend barbecues, all the hallmarks of a normal family life. Meanwhile, Ellie had drifted further away with each board meeting, each international flight, each late-night work session. Should I reschedule your dinner with the Chinese investors? Marcus asked. Victoria was about to agree when something caught her eye on her newsfeed. A financial report about Prism, the social media platform Ellie used obsessively. The company was struggling. Its stock down 40% after a disappointing quarter. No, Victoria said, suddenly focused. But get me everything you can on Prism. Financials, user demographics, internal struggles, everything. The social media company? Why? Victoria picked up her cracked phone, staring at the block notification from Ellie's account one more time. Because my daughter can block me in her digital world. But I'm about to own that world. Marcus's expression shifted to concern. Ms. Harrington, I'm not sure that's the best approach. You know what I realized today, Marcus? I've spent 20 years proving I could build something from nothing. I've acquired companies, crushed competitors, and revolutionized 3 different industries. She stood, turning to face the window again. But I've never used any of that power for what actually matters. Later that night, Victoria sat alone in her penthouse, scrolling through years of Ellie's social media that she'd never bothered to look at before. Posts about college struggles, about feeling alone, about building a life separate from her mother's shadow, and everywhere, Prism's distinctive rainbow icon appeared. It was Ellie's preferred platform, the one place she seemed to express herself freely. Victoria opened her laptop and began typing an email to her legal team. The subject line read, Acquisition Target, Prism, immediate and confidential. In the Zajun, quiet of her expansive, empty home, Victoria Harrington made her first decision as a mother in years, even if it was still filtered through the lens of being a CEO. Absolutely not. Jason Chen, Prism's 30-something CEO, paced the conference room. We didn't agree to meet to discuss a takeover. Victoria remained perfectly still at the head of the table, her expression neutral. You agreed to meet to discuss your funding crisis. I'm offering a solution. By erasing everything we've built? His voice rose, drawing glances from the executives flanking him. By saving it, Victoria corrected. She nodded to Marcus, who distributed folders to everyone present. My offer is 40% above your current market valuation. Your investors will be thrilled. Jason flipped through the proposal, his frown deepening. This isn't about money. Prism was built as an alternative to corporate-controlled social media. Our users trust us precisely because we're not Harrington Tech. Victoria leaned forward. And how will those users feel when you shut down because you can't make payroll next quarter? A heavy silence fell over the room. Prism's CFO cleared her throat. Jason, we should at least consider— No, he closed the folder. We'll find another way. Victoria had anticipated this. She'd studied Jason Chen extensively over the past 48 hours. Idealistic Stanford dropout, passionate about digital autonomy, exactly the type who would resist her approach. She needed to change tactics. What if Prism maintained its independence? Victoria offered. Separate management, separate branding. My investment. Your vision. Jason's expression wavered. Why would you do that? What's your angle? Victoria had prepared a response about strategic diversification and untapped demographics. Instead, she heard herself say, My daughter loves your platform. It's important to her, so it's important to me. The unexpected honesty seemed to catch Jason off guard. He studied her face, searching for deception. My lawyers will want specific guarantees of autonomy, he finally said. Of course. As the meeting shifted to preliminary terms, Victoria felt a strange sensation, something between victory and vertigo. She was committing billions to a struggling company for entirely personal reasons. It wasn't rational. It wasn't the Harrington way. 3 hours later, they had a handshake agreement. Harrington Tech would acquire Prism, but the platform would maintain its branding and operational independence for at least 18 months, just long enough for Victoria's purposes. You realize this makes no sense as a business decision, Marcus said as they rode the elevator down to the waiting car. Prism's technology is nothing special. Their user base is devoted but not growing. The price you're paying is— I know exactly what I'm paying, Victoria interrupted. And why? Marcus hesitated. Ms. Harrington, Victoria, I've worked with you for 7 years. I've never seen you act impulsively. Is that how this seems? Impulsive? You decided to acquire a company worth billions because your daughter blocked your phone number. Put that way, it did sound extreme, but Victoria had spent her entire career making bold moves that others couldn't understand until they succeeded. I've missed everything that matters to Ellie, Victoria said quietly. Her graduation, her college choice, her change of major. I don't even know who her friends are, but I know she lives on Prism. It's her digital home. And you think buying her favorite app will make her talk to you again? Victoria stepped into the waiting car. I think it's the only way to reach her world. There are simpler approaches, Marcus suggested. You could write her a letter, visit her apartment, call her friends. Those require her cooperation. This doesn't. Marcus looked troubled. With respect, that sounds more like a hostile takeover than reconciliation. Victoria stared out the window as the car pulled into Manhattan traffic. Maybe Marcus was right, but reconciliation required communication. And Ellie had cut off every channel. Victoria was simply creating a new one, the only way she knew how. That night, as the legal teams worked through preliminary paperwork, Victoria explored Prism more thoroughly. The platform was uniquely designed around visual storytelling. Photos and short videos organized into prisms that refracted content to different audiences. Users could control exactly who saw each post, creating different versions of themselves for different viewers. No wonder Ellie had chosen it. She'd spent her life managing different versions of herself, the dutiful daughter in their rare public appearances, the abandoned child with her father's new family, the independent student, forging her own identity. On Prism, that fragmentation wasn't a burden. It was a feature. Victoria's phone rang, the acquisition team with questions about the deal structure. As she answered, She realized she was about to control the very platform where her daughter felt safe expressing herself, the place Ellie had deliberately blocked her from. For the first time, Victoria wondered if she was making a terrible mistake. Victoria rarely ventured into the east wing of her penthouse. It contained Ellie's childhood bedroom, preserved like a museum exhibit since she'd left for college 3 years ago. The door was closed, as always. Today, Victoria pushed it open. The room felt like a time capsule. Trophies from debate tournaments Ellie had won while Victoria was overseas, photos of school trips chaperoned by nannies, a collection of snow globes from cities Victoria had sent them from as apology gifts. On the desk sat an old laptop covered in stickers, remnants of a childhood Victoria had funded, but not witnessed. She picked up a framed photo. Ellie at about 12, laughing as she rode a carousel. Victoria squinted, trying to remember the moment, then realized with a jolt that she wasn't in the picture. Rosa, their housekeeper, stood beside Ellie instead, both of them beaming. That was at Central Park, came a voice from the doorway. Her 12th birthday. Victoria turned to see Rosa standing there, a duster in hand, her eyes soft with memory. "I was in Tokyo," Victoria said, the familiar guilt settling in her stomach. "Singapore," Rosa corrected gently. The Tokyo trip was her 10th birthday. Singapore was her 12th. Victoria set down the photo. After 15 years managing her household, Rosa knew more about Victoria's daughter than Victoria did herself. "You're crying," Rosa observed. Victoria touched her cheek, surprised to find it wet. "She blocked me, Ellie, on everything." Rosa nodded, unsurprised. "She was very upset after your last conversation." "What conversation?" "The scholarship. You told her she should apply to business school instead of the psychology graduate program." Victoria vaguely remembered the call, taken between meetings, half her attention on quarterly projections. "That was weeks ago. 3 months," Rosa corrected. "And you said her desire to help people was soft-hearted idealism that wouldn't pay the bills." The words, repeated back, sounded cruel. Had she really said that to her own daughter? "I only meant—" "I know what you meant," Rosa said, her accent thickening as it always did when she was emotional. "You meant well. You always mean well. But meaning isn't the same as doing. In anyone else, this frankness would have triggered Victoria's legendary temper. From Rosa, she accepted it. The older woman had been more of a mother to Ellie than Victoria had ever managed to be. "I'm trying to fix it," Victoria said. "I bought Prism." Rosa's eyebrows shot up. "The app? You bought an entire company because Ellie is angry with you?" When Rosa put it that way, it sounded absurd. The desperate act of a woman who only knew how to solve problems with money and power. "I thought I could reach her through it somehow," Victoria admitted. "Change the platform to help us reconnect." Rosa sat on the edge of Ellie's bed, patting the space beside her. Victoria hesitated, then joined her. "Mija," Rosa said, using the endearment she normally reserved for Ellie. "You cannot buy connection. Not with your daughter, not with anyone. Then what do I do?" For perhaps the first time in her adult life, Victoria Harrington, the woman Forbes had called the most formidable negotiator in tech, was completely lost. "You must be vulnerable," Rosa said simply. "No power, no control. Just a mother who misses her daughter." Victoria nearly laughed. "Vulnerability has never been my strong suit. This is why you struggle to connect. Everything for you is a transaction, a negotiation. Love doesn't work that way." Rosa's eyes were kind but unflinching. "When was the last time you did something with no advantage to yourself? Something just to make Ellie happy?" Victoria opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. She couldn't remember. "Maybe start there," Rosa suggested, "before you change her app or buy her anything else. Learn who your daughter has become, not to get her back, just to know her." "How?" "She won't speak to me." Rosa stood, smoothing her apron. "There are ways to know people beyond speaking to them directly. Watch, listen, pay attention to what she cares about. You are good at research for business, yes? Do research for your heart now." After Rosa left, Victoria remained in Ellie's room, surrounded by artifacts of a childhood she'd largely missed. On the bookshelf, she noticed a journal with a rainbow, striped down the spine, Prism's colors. She pulled it out, hesitating only briefly before opening it. Inside wasn't a diary as she'd expected, but a scrapbook. News clippings about Victoria's business achievements, photos from industry events, magazine profiles, all carefully preserved. On one page, Victoria found a note in Ellie's teenage handwriting. Mom featured in Time's 100 Most Influential People. Missed my piano recital but changing the world instead. The words could have been bitter, but something in their careful preservation suggested otherwise. Perhaps admiration, even pride, alongside the hurt. Victoria closed the book, a new understanding dawning. All these years, she'd assumed Ellie resented her success. Maybe what she resented was being excluded from it. She needed to understand her daughter better before making another move. And for once, Victoria Harrington was going to take someone else's advice. I want access to the user behavior analytics, Victoria told Jason Chen via video call the next morning. Specifically, pattern recognition across demographic segments. The Prism CEO frowned. That wasn't part of our agreement. User data privacy is our cornerstone. I'm not asking for individual user data, Victoria clarified, though that was exactly what she wanted. Just aggregated insights to help me understand your platform better. Why the sudden interest in how Prism works? Yesterday you barely knew. We existed. Victoria maintained her professional mask. I've just invested billions in your company. I'd like to understand what I've bought. The negotiation took another 20 minutes, but eventually Jason agreed to provide limited analytics access, with all personally identifiable information removed. It wasn't what Victoria wanted, but it was a start. As soon as the call ended, she contacted Prism's head of data science directly. Sandra Lee had worked at Harrington Tech years earlier. Victoria was counting on that connection. This is highly irregular, Sandra said when Victoria explained what she wanted. I understand the ethical concerns, Victoria replied, but I'm looking for information about one specific user, my daughter. I'm her mother. She's also an adult with privacy rights. Victoria leaned forward. Sandra, do you remember when your father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's? You needed time off, but were afraid to ask because we were in the middle of a product launch. Sandra's expression softened. You gave me 6 weeks, fully paid, and a team of specialists to consult. Family comes first. That's always been my policy. The irony of this statement wasn't lost on Victoria. I'm not trying to invade my daughter's privacy. I'm trying to understand her life because she won't let me be part of it. After a long pause, Sandra nodded. I can give you limited access to her public posts and interaction patterns. Nothing private. Nothing she's shared only with friends. That's all I need. Hours later, Victoria sat in her home office, surrounded by holographic displays of data. Ellie's Prism activity over the past 2 years floated before her. Posts, comments, likes, groups joined, content shared. It was like excavating an archaeological site, each layer revealing something new about the person her daughter had become. The most frequent hashtag in Ellie's posts, children's, hospital volunteer. Victoria tapped the hologram, expanding a photo of Ellie reading to a group of children in hospital beds. According to the timestamp, this was taken the same weekend Victoria had invited Ellie to join her at a tech conference in Austin. Ellie had declined, saying she was busy with school stuff. Not a lie, exactly, but not the whole truth either. Victoria scrolled further. Ellie's psychology major focused on childhood trauma and resilience. Her thesis proposal, publicly shared on her academic profile, examined how children of high-achieving parents developed coping mechanisms for perceived emotional abandonment. Subtle, Ellie, Victoria murmured, a sad smile touching her lips. Other patterns emerged. Ellie regularly interacted with posts about financial struggles, often commenting with encouragement, but never mentioning her own situation. Victoria frowned. As far as she knew, Ellie's trust fund provided generous monthly allowances. Was she having money problems? A deeper dive revealed the truth. 6 months ago, Ellie had legally restricted her access to the trust fund Victoria had established, limiting herself to minimal withdrawals for tuition and basic living expenses. The rest remained untouched. She'd rather struggle than use my money, Victoria realized aloud, the knowledge striking like a physical blow. More scrolling revealed Ellie's apartment, a tiny studio in a questionable neighborhood, nothing like the luxury condo Victoria had offered to buy her. Her part-time job at a campus bookstore, her volunteer schedule at Metropolitan Children's Hospital, her small circle of close friends, none from wealthy backgrounds, all studying helping professions like social work, education, nursing. Ellie had created a life as different from Victoria's as possible. A life focused on people rather than profit, on emotional connection rather than achievement. Victoria sat back, processing this digital portrait of her daughter. The Ellie she'd imagined, aimless, resentful, struggling to find purpose, wasn't real. The actual Ellie was focused, compassionate, and fiercely independent. She pulled up her daughter's most recent public post, a fundraising appeal for the Children's Hospital's art therapy program. The goal was modest, $5,000, and so far they'd raised just over half. Victoria's finger hovered over the donate button. It would be so easy to fund the entire program anonymously, to give Ellie this small victory. But Rosa's words echoed in her mind. Everything for you is a transaction. Would throwing money at a cause Ellie cared about actually help them reconnect? Or would it just be another example of Victoria trying to solve emotional problems with financial solutions? A notification popped up on her screen. The Prism developers had sent the first mock-ups of platform changes for her approval. The acquisition was moving forward rapidly. Soon, Victoria would have the power to reshape her daughter's digital world. But for the first time since hatching this plan, she questioned whether she should. She minimized the development plans and returned to Ellie's profile, focusing on a recent photo. Her daughter stood surrounded by children in a hospital playroom, her smile genuine in a way it never was in the formal portraits Victoria had commissioned over the years. Victoria touched the image, enlarging Ellie's face. When had her little girl become this poised young woman? How had she missed so much? "I don't even know you," she whispered to the image. "But I want to." She closed the holographic displays and reached for her phone. Instead of calling Ellie directly, a call that wouldn't be answered, she dialed a different number. "Metropolitan Children's Hospital." A cheerful voice answered. "How may I direct your call?" "I'd like information about your volunteer program," Victoria said, making a decision that had nothing to do with acquiring companies or controlling platforms. "And your art therapy fundraiser. The Family Reconnect feature will appear as a gentle suggestion in users' activity feeds," explained Sandra, sliding a tablet across the conference table. "Based on their interaction patterns, it identifies estranged or distant family members and prompts users to reach out." Victoria studied the mock-up. The feature looked tasteful, unobtrusive, a small rainbow bridge icon with the message, "Rebuild, connections with those who matter most." "And you can target specific users?" Victoria asked. Sandra shifted uncomfortably. "Technically, yes. But ethically, I understand the ethical concerns," Victoria interrupted. "But this is a positive feature, encouraging meaningful connection. Who could object to that?" The Prism development team exchanged glances. They'd been working around the clock since the acquisition announcement, implementing Victoria's first platform change. None of them knew the true motivation behind it. "The algorithm identifies family members through a combination of stated relationships, shared connections, and interaction history," the lead developer explained. "It's quite sophisticated." "And for users who've blocked family members," Victoria kept her tone casual, another uncomfortable silence. "The feature will still show up, but it won't specifically identify blocked connections," Sandra finally answered. "That would violate our terms of service." Victoria nodded, hiding her disappointment. "When can we roll this out?" "We can start with a beta test tomorrow. Full implementation by the end of the week. Make it tomorrow for everyone," Victoria decided. "And I want detailed analytics on user engagement." After the team filed out, Marcus lingered behind. "You're rushing this. The longer I wait, the longer Ellie and I remain estranged." "But this approach," Marcus hesitated. "It feels manipulative." Victoria bristled. "It's a positive feature that will help many users reconnect with family. Ellie might be one of them. And if she's not, if she recognizes this as an attempt to circumvent her boundaries?" The question hit too close to Victoria's own doubts. "Then I'll try something else." The Family Reconnect feature launched the next day. Victoria waited anxiously for user reactions, particularly Ellie's. The general response was mixed. Some users appreciated the gentle nudge toward reconciliation, while others criticized it as emotionally manipulative. By evening, Victoria had her answer. Ellie had posted publicly on Prism. "Anyone else creeped out by this new reconnect with family thing? Just because someone shares your DNA doesn't mean they deserve access to your life. Some relationships are broken for good reasons. Respect boundaries. Privacy matters." The post had hundreds of supportive comments. Victoria read each one, her heart sinking. Not only had her attempt failed, but it had also pushed Ellie to publicly reinforce her stance. She closed her laptop, a familiar hollowness settling in her chest. The same feeling she'd had after every missed recital, every abbreviated holiday, every time she'd chosen work over her daughter, and told herself it was for Ellie's future. Her phone chimed with a text from Marcus. Saw Ellie's post. You okay? Victoria didn't respond. Instead, she poured herself a glass of wine and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse. The city sprawled below, millions of lights representing millions of lives. Somewhere out there was her daughter, further away now than before Victoria's intervention. She thought of Rosa's advice about vulnerability, about doing something with no advantage to herself. The Family Reconnect feature had been presented as helping all users, but in reality, it was Victoria's attempt to manipulate her daughter back into her life. Her phone rang. Jason Chen, Prism's CEO. Victoria, he began without preamble. We need to talk about today's feature launch. The user engagement numbers. This isn't about metrics, he interrupted. It's about trust. Our users trust us with their digital lives, their personal relationships. This feature feels like an intrusion into that sacred space. Victoria wanted to argue, to remind him who owned the company now. Instead, she found herself asking, "What would you suggest?" The question seemed to surprise him. Honestly, roll it back. Admit it was well-intentioned, but missed the mark. Show our users we listen to them. That would look like a failure. It would look like respect, Jason countered, something that might actually rebuild trust. After they hung up, Victoria stared at her reflection in the window. When had she become someone who would use her power to force her way back into her daughter's life? Who would buy an entire company just to circumvent a block? She thought about what she'd learned from Ellie's digital footprint, her daughter's commitment to helping vulnerable children, her independence, her principled stand against using Victoria's money. Would that Ellie respect what Victoria was doing now? The answer was painfully clear. Victoria typed out an email to the Prism development team. Effective immediately. Roll back the Family Reconnect feature. Issue a statement acknowledging user feedback and our commitment to respecting relationship boundaries. Begin development on enhanced privacy controls instead. She hesitated before sending it, her finger hovering over the screen. This felt like admitting defeat, like losing her best chance to reach Ellie. But maybe reaching Ellie wasn't the point. Maybe understanding her was. Victoria pressed send, then composed a second email, this one to Metropolitan Children's Hospital's volunteer coordinator. The subject line read, "Confidential inquiry about volunteer opportunities." For the first time since conceiving this plan, Victoria wasn't trying to control the outcome. She was simply trying to understand the woman her daughter had become. "Ms. Harrington, I'm Dr. Adams, head of pediatric oncology." Victoria shook the doctor's hand, acutely aware of how out of place she looked. She'd dressed down deliberately, simple, slacks and a sweater instead of her usual power suit, but still felt conspicuous among the hospital staff in their colorful scrubs. "Thank you for meeting with me," Victoria said. "I understand your volunteer program is quite selective." Dr. Adams nodded. "We work with vulnerable children. We need to be careful." Victoria had expected this response. Her background check would reveal no red flags, unless wealth and workaholic tendencies counted, but her sudden interest in volunteering might raise questions. "May I ask what drew you to our program specifically?" Dr. Adams asked, studying Victoria with thoughtful eyes. Victoria had prepared an answer about giving back and community service, the kind of philanthropic platitude she'd offered at countless charity galas. Instead, she found herself saying, "My daughter volunteers here. I want to understand what matters to her." Dr. Adams's expression softened with surprise at this honesty. "You're Ellie's mother," Victoria nodded. "She doesn't know I'm here. We're not in communication currently." "I see." The doctor seemed to be reassessing Victoria. "Ellie works primarily with our long-term patients, children who are here for extended treatments. Is she good with them?" A genuine smile transformed Dr. Adams' face. "Exceptional. She has a gift for meeting children where they are. No condescension, no forced cheer, just authentic presence." Pride bloomed in Victoria's chest. "When does she usually volunteer?" "Tuesdays and Thursdays, afternoon to evening." Dr. Adams gave her a knowing look. "Today is Wednesday." Victoria acknowledged this with a nod. She'd chosen today deliberately to avoid an accidental encounter. "I'm not here to ambush her," Victoria explained. "I just want to see the world she's created for herself." Dr. Adams considered this. "We have a story hour starting in the playroom. In 15 minutes. You're welcome to observe, but not participate without proper training." "That's perfect. Thank you." The pediatric ward was nothing like Victoria had imagined. Instead of sterile white walls and the sharp smell of antiseptic, She found vibrant murals, soft music, and the occasional burst of children's laughter. Still, beneath the cheerful facade lay the unmistakable reality of serious illness. IV poles decorated with superhero stickers, children with surgical masks and missing hair, parents with worry etched into their faces. Victoria followed signs to the playroom, where a small group of children had gathered on colorful floor cushions. Some were in wheelchairs, others trailing IV stands, all wearing patient wristbands. A young volunteer was setting up for the story hour, arranging books and puppets. Victoria slipped into a chair at the back of the room, introduced by Dr. Adams as a potential volunteer observer. The children barely noticed her, focused on the upcoming story. As the session progressed, Victoria found herself unexpectedly moved. These children, facing battles no child should have to fight, still laughed at silly voices and argued about plot points. They interrupted with questions and demanded favorite stories be read again. Despite everything, they were still just kids. "Can I sit with you?" Victoria turned to find a small girl beside her chair, perhaps 7 or 8 years old. Her head was wrapped in a colorful scarf, and she pulled an IV stand behind her like a reluctant pet. "Of course," Victoria replied, shifting to make room. The girl settled beside her. "I'm Zoe. I don't like story hour. The books are for babies." Victoria couldn't help smiling at her matter-of-fact tone. "What do you like to read?" "Chapter books, with magic and adventures." Zoe studied Victoria curiously. "Are you someone's mom?" The question caught Victoria off guard. "I am. My daughter is grown up now. Does she visit you a lot?" A simple question that cut straight to the heart. "Not as much as I'd like." Zoe nodded sagely. "My dad lives far away. He calls on the computer, but it's not the same." "No," Victoria agreed softly. "It's not. Ellie says that's okay, though," Zoe continued, oblivious to how the name jolted Victoria. "She says families come in all different shapes, and sometimes the people who love you most can't be with you all the time." Victoria swallowed hard. "You know Ellie?" Zoe brightened. "She's my favorite. She doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby or like I'm dying. And she brings the best books, not these silly picture books." "What else does Ellie do when she visits?" "She helps me write stories sometimes. I'm writing one about a princess who's also a scientist. Ellie says girls can be both pretty and smart." Zoe looked up at Victoria. "She reminds me of you. You both have the same eyes." Victoria was saved from responding by the arrival of a nurse announcing medication time. Zoe sighed dramatically but stood up. "Will you come back?" she asked Victoria. "Maybe when Ellie's here? She could read to both of us." "I'd like that," Victoria said, surprised to find she meant it. After Zoe left, Victoria remained in the playroom, watching the volunteer pack up from story hour. This small room, with its worn books and hand-painted decorations, was part of Ellie's world, a world of genuine connection and purpose. On her way out, Victoria passed a bulletin board covered with children's artwork. Among the drawings, she spotted a fundraising thermometer for the art therapy program, the same one Ellie had posted about online. They were still several $1,000s short of their goal. Victoria's first instinct was to write a check on the spot. A quick solution. A problem solved with money. Instead, she took a pamphlet about the program, tucking it into her purse to consider later. Outside in the parking lot, Victoria sat in her car, not yet starting the engine. The visit had shown her a side of Ellie she'd never seen, or perhaps never allowed herself to see. Her daughter wasn't rebelling against Victoria's success. She was creating her own definition of it. "What would you do, Zoe?" Victoria murmured to herself, thinking of the forthright little girl. "How would you get your mom back?" The answer came with unexpected clarity. You wouldn't trick her or force her. You'd show her who you really are, and hope she sees something worth loving. The suburban house looked like something from a sitcom. White picket fence, bicycles in the driveway, a basketball hoop above the garage. Victoria felt like an alien visitor as she parked her sleek sports car behind a minivan with soccer team stickers. She'd called ahead, of course. Michael had sounded surprised, but not unwelcoming. "The twins are at swimming lessons until 5, he'd told her. "Come around 4 if you want to talk privately." Now, sitting in her car, Victoria questioned the wisdom of this visit. She and Michael had managed a civilized divorce 5 years ago, largely by avoiding each other. Their marriage had collapsed under the weight of her ambition and his resentment, with Ellie caught in the middle. Before she could reconsider, the front door opened. Michael stood on the porch, looking remarkably unchanged, still handsome in a comfortable way, with new strands of gray at his temples. He raised a hand in greeting, Neither warm nor cold. This is unexpected, he said as she approached. I know. Thank you for seeing me. He led her inside to a sunny kitchen with children's artwork magnetized to the refrigerator. A pot of something simmered on the stove, filling the house with the scent of home-cooked food. Coffee? He offered. Please. The domestic normalcy felt surreal. In their marriage, they'd had a housekeeper prepare meals and a personal assistant manage their social calendar. This lived-in home with toys scattered about and mismatched mugs was a different universe. How are you, Victoria? Michael asked, handing her a steaming cup. Professionally, excellent. Personally, she shrugged. Ellie has blocked me on everything. Michael nodded, unsurprised. I heard. You're still in contact with her? We have dinner every few weeks. She adores the twins. He settled across from her at the kitchen table. Why are you here, Victoria? After 5 years of communicating strictly through lawyers and assistants, Victoria wrapped her hands around the warm mug. I need to understand Ellie better. You've remained close to her. I thought you might have insights. Michael studied her face. You bought Prism. She couldn't hide her surprise. How did you know? Ellie told me. She figured it out as soon as the acquisition was announced. He shook his head. Only you would buy an entire social media platform because your daughter blocked your number. Is that what she thinks? That I'm trying to control her, aren't you? The directness of the question was jarring. In her professional life, people rarely challenged Victoria so bluntly. I'm trying to reconnect with her, Victoria said carefully. By purchasing the one space where she felt free from your influence. Michael's tone wasn't accusatory. More sad than angry. Victoria, you've always tried to solve emotional problems with power plays. It didn't work in our marriage and it won't work with Ellie. The truth stung. Then what will? She won't even speak to me. Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. A familiar gesture from their years together. Do you remember when Ellie was 10 and she wanted to quit piano lessons? Victoria nodded. Ellie had shown early musical talent, and Victoria had hired the best instructors, envisioning her daughter performing at Carnegie Hall someday. You told her quitting wasn't an option for Harringtons. That excellence required discipline. Michael leaned forward. Do you know why she wanted to quit? She found it too challenging. She wanted to join the school choir instead, to make music with friends rather than alone. He smiled sadly. Ellie has never been like you, Victoria. Her happiness comes from connection, not achievement. Victoria absorbed this. But I've offered connection. Vacations, dinners, calls. On your terms. In your world. Michael's interruption was gentle but firm. When was the last time you entered her world instead? When did you last show interest in what matters to her, rather than what you think should matter? The question echoed Rose's advice and the insights from Victoria's hospital visit. 3 different perspectives converging on the same truth. She's volunteering at a children's hospital, Victoria said. I went there yesterday. Michael looked genuinely surprised. Did you speak with her? No. I just observed. Wanted to understand what draws her there. That's actually a good start. He sounded impressed despite himself. Ellie's been working with those kids for over a year now. It's become her passion. She's studying childhood trauma in her psychology program. Michael nodded. Her thesis focuses on how children develop resilience in challenging circumstances. Like having ambitious, absent parents, Victoria thought but didn't say. She's struggling financially, Victoria noted. She restricted her trust fund access. She wants to make it on her own, to know she can. Michael gave her a pointed look. Something she learned from you, actually, that self-reliance matters. Victoria hadn't considered this perspective, that Ellie's independence might be inspired by rather than in opposition to her example. What should I do, Michael? How do I reach her? He seemed taken aback by the vulnerability in her question. For a moment, she glimpsed the man she'd married, thoughtful, kind, before years of feeling secondary to her career had hardened him. Stop trying to control the situation, he said finally. Ellie needs to see you as a mother, not a CEO staging a takeover. And how do I show her that? By respecting her boundaries while making yourself available, by supporting what matters to her without trying to direct it. He paused. And maybe by showing her you're capable of change. The front door burst open before Victoria could respond. 2 small whirlwinds rushed in. The twins, she presumed, followed by a woman who must be Michael's new wife. They all froze. At the sight of Victoria. Amanda, this is Victoria, Michael said, standing. Victoria. My wife, Amanda. And these are Sam and Lily. The children stared at Victoria with undisguised curiosity. "Are you Ellie's mom?" one of them asked. "I am," Victoria replied, surprised by the emotion that simple acknowledgement triggered. "She showed us your picture," the child continued. "She said you run a really big company and make computers do cool stuff." Victoria glanced at Michael, who nodded confirmation. "Ellie talks about you more than you might think," he said quietly. As Victoria drove home later, this revelation replayed. In her mind, Ellie talked about her, showed her picture to her half-siblings. Perhaps the door between them wasn't as firmly closed as it had seemed. The question was how to open it without forcing it, how to reach her daughter with respect rather than power. And for the first time, Victoria was beginning to understand the answer. "We need to discuss Prism's rebranding," Marcus said, placing a tablet in front of Victoria. "The design team has prepared several options." They sat in Victoria's office, the Manhattan skyline gleaming through the windows. 2 weeks had passed since her visit with Michael. Weeks spent in quiet reflection rather than the aggressive action that typically characterized Victoria's approach to problems. She scrolled through the proposed designs, all variations on Harrington Tech's established aesthetic. Clean, minimalist, powerful. None of them felt right. "These all erase Prism's identity," Victoria observed. "That's not what I want." Marcus looked confused. "But the acquisition agreement allows for complete rebranding after 30 days. The marketing team is eager to bring Prism under the Harrington umbrella." Victoria set down the tablet. "My original plan was short-sighted." "How so?" "I thought I could force my way back into Ellie's life by controlling her digital space, but that approach only reinforced everything she resents about me, using power and money to get what I want." The admission felt strange on Victoria's lips. She wasn't accustomed to acknowledging flawed strategies, especially to her employees. But Marcus was more than that after 7 years. He was perhaps the closest thing she had to a friend. "So you're abandoning the plan?" he asked. "I'm evolving it." Victoria pulled up a different file on her computer. "I visited the children's hospital where Ellie volunteers. Met a little girl named Zoe who adores my daughter. And Zoe taught me more about Ellie in 20 minutes than I've learned in the past 5 years." Victoria turned her screen to show Marcus a child's drawing, a stick figure princess wearing a lab coat and crown. "She's writing a story with Ellie about a princess scientist." Marcus smiled. "Cute. But what does this have to do with Prism?" "Everything." Victoria opened another file. A college essay Ellie had written years ago, retrieved from old emails. "Listen to this. In a prism, light doesn't just pass through, it transforms. Different perspectives reveal different colors from the same source. That's how I see human potential, not as a single defined path, but as infinite possibilities, refracted through experience." She looked up at Marcus. "That's why Ellie loves this platform. It's not just about social connection. It's about seeing the world through multiple perspectives, about second chances and new beginnings." Understanding dawned on Marcus's face. "You want to rename Prism to something that honors that vision, not replaces it." "Exactly." Victoria pulled up a new design. A simple, elegant logo featuring a rainbow, emerging from darkness. "I want to call it Second Chance." Marcus studied the design. "It's beautiful, but subtle. Most users won't connect it to your situation with Ellie. They don't need to. She will." Victoria traced the logo with her finger. The rainbow elements preserve Prism's identity, while evolving it into something new. Just like I'm trying to do with myself. The board might question this direction. Let them. I'm not doing this for business reasons. Victoria's voice was firm. And there's more. I want to establish a scholarship fund for psychology students focusing on childhood resilience. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Coincidentally matching Ellie's field of study? Not coincidentally at all. But it will be anonymous. Administered through the platform. No strings. No public recognition. You're creating opportunities for Ellie without directly interfering in her life, Marcus observed. That's surprisingly restrained for you. Victoria smiled at his candor. I'm learning that sometimes the best way to reach someone isn't by breaking down their door, but by building a bridge and waiting to see if they cross it. After Marcus left, Victoria remained at her desk, contemplating the new design. The name Second Chance resonated on multiple levels. A second chance for the platform under new ownership, for users to reconnect with what mattered, and hopefully, for Victoria and Ellie's relationship. She opened her personal email and began composing a message to the Children's Hospital, finalizing her donation to their art therapy program. Unlike her usual philanthropic gifts, this one would be anonymous. No naming rights, no press release, no tax benefit. Next, she drafted the outline for the scholarship program. It would provide full funding for graduate students in psychology who demonstrated financial need and commitment to working with vulnerable children. The selection criteria would ensure Ellie would qualify, but so would dozens of other deserving students. Victoria hesitated before sending these instructions to her team. Was she still trying to manipulate Ellie, just more subtly? Was an anonymous scholarship any less controlling than buying her daughter's favorite app? She closed her eyes, remembering Zoe's innocent question at the hospital. Does she visit you? A lot. The painful truth of her answer. The realization that she'd never truly visited Ellie's world either. Not until recently. No, this wasn't manipulation. It was finally seeing her daughter clearly and honoring her path, even if that path led away from Victoria. For perhaps the first time, Victoria was acting as a mother rather than a CEO. She sent the emails, then pulled up the finalized design for Second Chance. The new logo incorporated elements that only Ellie might recognize. The curve of the rainbow matched a doodle Ellie had drawn repeatedly in her childhood notebooks. The typography subtly echoed a poem Ellie had written in high school, which Victoria had recently discovered while going through old keepsakes. Small details. Invisible. To most, that said, I see you. I remember. I'm trying. Victoria picked up her phone, tempted to call Ellie directly. But no. That would be falling back into old patterns, demanding attention on her timeline. Instead, she simply posted a single public message on her rarely used Prism account. Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is admit we were wrong and try again. Second chances. It wasn't directed at Ellie. Her daughter probably wouldn't even see it, but it was a start. A small step toward vulnerability that felt more terrifying than any billion-dollar business deal Victoria had ever negotiated. The rebrand is trending on all major platforms, Marcus reported, scrolling through his tablet as he walked alongside Victoria. 78% positive sentiment, 18% neutral, only 4% negative. Victoria nodded absently. They were heading to a board meeting where she'd explain the unexpected direction she'd taken with Prism, now officially renamed Second Chance. The financial projections were promising. The app had gained users since the announcement, and engagement metrics were up. From a business perspective, the decision appeared sound. But Victoria wasn't thinking about metrics. She was wondering if Ellie had seen the announcement, if she'd recognized the subtle references embedded in the new design, if she understood what Victoria was trying to say. What about user retention rates? Victoria asked, focusing back on the immediate task of persuading her board. Up 12%. The scholarship announcement generated particular enthusiasm. We've received over 3,000 applications in just 48 hours. Victoria stopped walking. Has Ellie applied? Marcus hesitated. I'm not sure we should be tracking that specifically. You're right, Victoria conceded. That would cross a line. They resumed walking, but Victoria's thoughts remained on her daughter. Since the rebrand announcement 3 days ago, she'd checked Ellie's public profile hourly, looking for any reaction. So far, nothing. The board meeting went smoothly. Victoria presented the rebrand as a strategic pivot, emphasizing the positive press and user growth. She framed the scholarship program as corporate social responsibility, aligning with the platform's new focus on meaningful connection and second chances. No one needed to know that behind these business justifications lay a mother's desperate attempt to reach her daughter. After the meeting, Victoria returned to her office to find Jason Chen waiting. The Prism CEO, now Second Chance's Chief Innovation Officer, had been surprisingly supportive of the rebrand. The scholarship applications are overwhelming our team, he told her. We need additional reviewers. Hire whoever you need. That's not why I'm here. Jason studied her face. There's an application I think you should see personally. Victoria's heart jumped. Ellie? He nodded, handing her a tablet. She doesn't know I'm showing you this. Technically, all applications are confidential. Then why? Because you need to see who your daughter has become. Jason's expression was gentle but determined. And because I've realized there's more to this rebrand than business strategy. After he left, Victoria stared at the tablet for several minutes before finding the courage to read Ellie's application. It began with standard information: academic history, financial status, career goals. Then came the essay question: how would you use this opportunity to create second chances for others? Ellie's response filled the screen. My research focuses on children whose parents are emotionally absent due to demanding careers or personal struggles. These children often develop coping mechanisms that help them survive childhood, but hinder them in adulthood: perfectionism, emotional detachment, fear of abandonment. My goal is to develop interventions that help them transform these adaptive strategies into healthier patterns, creating second chances for meaningful connection. This focus isn't accidental. As the daughter of a high-profile tech executive, I lived this experience. My mother built an empire while I built walls. For years, I blamed her for prioritizing work over family. Recently, I've realized we were both doing the best we could with the tools we had. If granted this scholarship, I would complete my research and develop resources for both children and parents caught in these patterns, because I've learned that second chances aren't just for those who were hurt, but also for those who did the hurting, often without realizing the impact of their choices. Everyone deserves the chance to rewrite their story. Victoria set down the tablet, tears blurring her vision. Her daughter's words held more maturity and compassion than Victoria had expected, or deserved. Her office phone rang. Sandra from the data team. "You asked to be notified of any public posts from Ellie Harrington regarding the rebrand," Sandra said when Victoria answered. "She posted something, just now. It's generating significant engagement." Victoria thanked her and immediately pulled up Ellie's profile. There it was, a lengthy post that had already accumulated hundreds of comments. "So my mother bought my favorite app and renamed it Second Chance. Classic power move from a woman who built her career by controlling everything around her. Part of me wants to delete my account in protest. But then I really looked at the new design. The rainbow curve is identical to a doodle I've drawn since childhood. The font echoes a poem I wrote in high school. These aren't coincidences. For the first time, my mother isn't trying to make me fit into her world. She's acknowledging mine. She's speaking my language instead of expecting me to speak hers. I don't know how to feel about this. Part of me is still angry. Part of me is touched. But mostly, I'm confused. What do you do when someone who has always communicated in grand gestures finally tries something subtle? When someone who solved every problem with money creates something of genuine value? I don't know if I'm ready for reconciliation. But maybe, just maybe, I'm ready to consider the possibility of a check or second chance. Victoria read the post 3 times, absorbing every word. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even acceptance. But it was acknowledgement. A crack in the wall Ellie had built between them. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Saw Ellie's post. Good job not responding publicly. Give her space to process. Victoria hadn't even considered responding. For once, she didn't feel the need to control the narrative or push for a resolution. Ellie had heard her message, and that was enough for now. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a small sketchbook. One of Ellie's from childhood that Rosa had saved. The pages were filled with the same rainbow curve that now formed the logo of Second Chance, drawn over and over in different colors and sizes. Victoria had never noticed this recurring pattern in her daughter's artwork before, had never taken the time to look closely, had never truly seen Ellie as an individual separate from Victoria's expectations. She was seeing her now, through her words, her artwork, her choices, and for the first time, Victoria was allowing herself to be seen as well, not as the powerful CEO or the perfect mother, but as a flawed human being capable of growth and change. Whether that would be enough remained to be seen. We've narrowed the scholarship finalists to 20 candidates, Jason reported, placing a folder on Victoria's desk. The selection committee was particularly impressed with Ellie's application, though they don't know her connection to you. Victoria nodded, maintaining her professional composure, despite the flutter of anticipation in her chest. When will the recipients be announced? Next week. But there's something else. Jason hesitated. The committee suggested that scholarship recipients should be notified personally, given the platform's emphasis on meaningful connection. Victoria understood the implication immediately. You're suggesting I deliver the news to Ellie myself. It would be consistent with the program's values. Jason's expression remained neutral, but Victoria suspected he knew exactly what he was proposing. Of course, we could send someone else. No, Victoria said after a moment. You're right. Personal notification aligns with our mission. After Jason left, Victoria sat alone in her office, contemplating this unexpected development. She'd designed the scholarship to support Ellie indirectly, never imagining it might create an opportunity for direct contact. The prospect was both thrilling and terrifying. She opened the folder, reviewing the selection committee's notes on Ellie's application. They'd been impressed by her research proposal, her academic record, and her personal essay. She'd earned The scholarship on merit alone. Victoria's involvement hadn't influenced the outcome. That knowledge settled something in Victoria. This wasn't manipulation or buying her daughter's affection. It was recognition of Ellie's genuine accomplishments. Victoria picked up her phone to call Michael, seeking his perspective, then stopped herself. This was her decision to make as Ellie's mother, not as Victoria Harrington, CEO, who delegated personal matters to assistants and sought consensus before acting. Instead, she pulled up Ellie's address, a small apartment in a graduate student housing complex near her university. Tomorrow, she would go there, not to demand reconciliation or force a connection, but simply to deliver good news that Ellie had earned through her own efforts. That night, Victoria slept poorly, rehearsing what she might say. Every scenario felt inadequate. How did you bridge years of distance in a single conversation? What words could possibly matter after so much silence? Morning came too quickly. Victoria dressed with unusual indecision, rejecting her standard power, suits in favor of something more casual, dark jeans and a simple sweater. She wanted to meet Ellie as her mother, not as the tech mogul whose face appeared on magazine covers. The drive to Ellie's apartment complex took 45 minutes, each mile increasing Victoria's anxiety. She parked her luxury car, another symbol of the wealth that had always separated them, and sat for several minutes, gathering her courage. Ellie's building was modest, but well-maintained, with bicycles chained to racks out front, and potted plants decorating small balconies. Victoria checked the apartment number again, then climbed the stairs to the second floor. Standing before her daughter's door, Victoria felt more vulnerable than she had during any business negotiation or hostile takeover. She knocked before she could lose her nerve. Footsteps approached from inside. The door opened. "Mom?" Ellie's expression shifted from surprise to wariness. "What are you doing here?" Victoria had forgotten how much her daughter resembled her. The same dark hair and determined chin, though Ellie's eyes held a softness Victoria's had lost years ago. "Hello, Ellie." Victoria fought the urge to retreat into corporate formality. "May I come in? I have news about your scholarship application." Ellie's eyes widened. "You're behind the Second Chance Scholarship? I established the fund, yes, but..." An independent committee selected the recipients. Victoria held up the official envelope. "You were chosen on your own merits." Ellie stared at her for a long moment, then stepped back, wordlessly inviting her mother inside. The apartment was small but thoughtfully arranged. Bookshelves lining the walls, plants on every windowsill, a desk covered with research papers. No luxury items, no signs of the privilege Ellie had grown up with. She had truly built this life on her own terms. "So you bought Prism, renamed it, and created a scholarship program I would qualify for." Ellie's voice was carefully controlled. "That's a lot of effort to get around being blocked on social media." "It started that way," Victoria admitted, choosing honesty over defensiveness. "I was trying to control the situation like I always have. But somewhere along the way, it became about understanding you instead." "Understanding me?" Ellie's laugh held no humor. "You've had 24 years to do that. I know." Victoria placed the scholarship envelope on Ellie's kitchen counter, not pressing her to open it. "I missed that opportunity again and again. I have no excuse except that I thought providing for you financially was enough. I was wrong." The simple admission seemed to catch Ellie off guard. She'd clearly expected justifications or deflections, Victoria's usual responses to criticism. "The scholarship is yours regardless of anything else between us," Victoria continued. "No strings, no obligations. You earned it." Ellie picked up the envelope but didn't open it. "Why Second Chance? Why the rainbow design?" "Because of your essay from college about prisms transforming light, revealing different perspectives." Victoria gestured to a small drawing framed on Ellie's wall, another variation of the rainbow curve. "And because that shape appears in almost everything you've ever created." It seemed significant. "You noticed that?" Ellie sounded genuinely surprised. "Recently. I've been paying attention recently." Victoria moved toward the door, sensing Ellie needed space. "That's all I came to say. Congratulations on the scholarship. You deserve it." "Wait." Ellie's voice stopped her. "The art therapy program at the Children's Hospital. Was that you too?" Victoria nodded. "Anonymous donation. And the volunteer application I heard about from Dr. Adams?" I wanted to understand. "What matters to you?" Ellie studied her mother's face, searching for hidden motives. "So all this, buying Prism, the rebrand, the scholarship, the donation, was to get me to unblock you." "It started that way," Victoria repeated, "but it became something else. It became about seeing you clearly for the first time, about respecting the person you've become, even if that person wants nothing to do with me. The raw honesty hung in the air between them. Victoria had never been so vulnerable with anyone, least of all her daughter. Ellie looked down at the scholarship envelope in her hands. I need time to process all this. Of course. Victoria opened the apartment door. Take all the time you need. Mom? Ellie called as Victoria stepped into the hallway. Thank you for the scholarship and for noticing the rainbow. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But as Victoria walked back to her car, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Fragile but real, that someday she might truly know her daughter. The knock came 3 days later, as Victoria was reviewing quarterly projections in her home office. Rosa appeared in the doorway, her expression a mixture of surprise and apprehension. Ms. Victoria? Ellie is here. Victoria's hands froze over her keyboard. Here? Now? Rosa nodded. In the living room. She says she needs to talk to you. Victoria. Rose, smoothing her slacks with suddenly unsteady hands. She'd hoped for a response from Ellie after delivering the scholarship news, but hadn't expected a personal visit. Certainly not to the penthouse Ellie had avoided for years. Ellie stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing out at the city view. She turned as Victoria entered, her posture tense, defensive. Nice view, she said, her tone carefully neutral. Different from my place. Ellie, this is unexpected. Yeah, well, Ellie gestured vaguely. Unexpected seems to be our theme lately. Victoria moved further into the room but maintained distance, sensing her daughter's discomfort. Can I get you something? Coffee? Tea? I'm not here for pleasantries. Ellie pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket. The scholarship letter. I've been thinking about this. About everything you've done recently. Victoria waited, resisting the urge to fill the silence. At first I thought it was just another power play, Ellie continued. Buy my favorite app. Create a scholarship I'd qualify for. Donate to causes I care about. Classic Victoria Harrington. Throwing money at problems. The assessment stung. But Victoria didn't deny it. That's fair. But then I started noticing the details. Ellie's voice softened slightly. The rainbow design. The scholarship focus. How you delivered the news personally, but didn't push for more. It doesn't fit your usual pattern. I'm trying something new, Victoria admitted, listening instead of directing. Why now? After all these years, the question hung between them. Demanding absolute honesty, Victoria could have offered logical explanations or strategic justifications. Instead, she gave her daughter the unvarnished truth. Because losing you hurts more than I can bear. Because I finally realized what my success has cost us both. Ellie seemed caught off guard by the emotional candor, so unlike her always controlled mother. It's not that simple. You can't just decide to be present after being absent for 24 years. I know. Do you? Ellie's voice rose. Do you know what it was like growing up with a mother who treated parenthood like a quarterly objective? Who scheduled quality time between conference calls? Who missed every significant moment because something at work was always more important? The words poured out with the force of long-suppressed emotion. Victoria absorbed them without defense, recognizing each accusation as truth. I used to brag about you to the other kids, Ellie continued, pacing now. My mom runs a tech empire. My mom is on magazine covers. My mom is changing the world. But deep down, I would have traded all of it for a mother who showed up, who knew. Me, who put me first just once. Victoria fought back tears. I thought I was giving you everything. Security, opportunity, a model of female achievement. You gave me everything except yourself. Ellie stopped pacing, facing Victoria directly. And then you have the audacity to act hurt when I create boundaries. When I finally stop expecting something you've never been able to give. You're right. Victoria's voice was barely above a whisper. About all of it. The simple acknowledgement seemed to take some of the fight out of Ellie. She hadn't expected agreement, had prepared for the defensive counter-arguments her mother typically deployed. Then why all this? Ellie gestured to encompass the scholarship, the app acquisition, everything. Why now? Because when you blocked me, it forced me to see what I'd become. Victoria moved to the built-in shelves where family photos should have been, touching the empty spaces. A woman with every material success and nothing that truly matters. So this is about your guilt. No, it's about you. Victoria turned back to her daughter, about finally seeing you clearly. About honoring who you are, not who I wanted you to be. Ellie shook her head, confused. I don't know what to do with this version of you. You don't have to do anything. The scholarship is yours with no strings attached. The donations to the hospital will continue anonymously. Second Chance will remain true to its vision regardless of our personal relationship. And if I walk out that door and never speak to you again? The question cut deep. But Victoria didn't flinch. Then that's your choice. And I'll respect it. I won't use my resources to force my way back into your life. I'm done with that approach. Ellie studied her mother's face, searching for manipulation or hidden agenda. Finding none, she seemed almost disappointed, as if anger were easier to maintain than confusion. I need to think. She folded the scholarship letter, returning it to her pocket. This is a lot. Take all the time you need. Ellie moved toward the door, then paused. The little girl at the hospital, Zoe. She mentioned meeting someone who reminded her of me. That was you, wasn't it? Victoria nodded. She's quite perceptive. She has brain cancer, Ellie said quietly. Terminal, but she still finds joy in everything. Makes me wonder what my excuse is for holding on to resentment. The revelation hung in the air between them. Not quite forgiveness, but perhaps the seed of it. I'm not ready to let you back into my life, Ellie said finally, but I'm not ruling it out either. After Ellie left, Victoria remained standing in the living room, replaying every word of their conversation. There had been no dramatic reconciliation, no tearful embrace. But for the first time in years, there had been truth between them. Rosa appeared with a cup of tea, placing it gently in Victoria's hands. She came. That's something. Yes, Victoria agreed, watching the city lights begin to emerge as dusk fell. That's something. You want to do what? Jason Chen looked at Victoria as if she'd suggested they shut down the platform entirely. A truth in tech campaign, Victoria repeated, sliding her tablet across the conference table. Starting with me. The Second Chance executive team exchanged nervous glances. They'd gathered for their weekly strategy meeting, not expecting their CEO to propose something so unorthodox. I'm not following, Jason said carefully. You want to post, what, exactly? An honest account of how my work-life choices affected my family. No PR spin, no corporate messaging, just the truth about the personal cost of professional success. Marcus, sitting to Victoria's right, cleared his throat. While transparency is admirable, I'm not sure the platform is the appropriate venue for... It's exactly the right venue, Victoria interrupted. Second Chance is about authentic connection, about vulnerability, about, well, second chances. What better way to demonstrate those values than for me to embody them publicly? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Victoria Harrington, notorious for her privacy and carefully curated public image, was proposing to reveal her personal failures to millions of users. The legal team will have concerns, the chief counsel noted. Potential shareholder reactions, impact on stock price. Victoria had anticipated this response. I'm not proposing to share proprietary information or company secrets. Just my own story, as a mother who prioritized career over family and is trying to make amends. May I ask what prompted this? Jason's question was gentle but direct. Victoria considered how much to share. The executive team knew about her estrangement from Ellie. It had become impossible to hide given recent events, but they didn't know about their confrontation 3 days ago. My daughter told me something I've been thinking about, she said. Finally, that I treated parenthood like a quarterly objective, that I scheduled quality time between conference calls. She was right. No one seemed to know how to respond to this unexpected vulnerability from their typically stoic CEO. What I'm proposing, Victoria continued into the silence, is a campaign encouraging users to share their own stories of failure, apology, and growth, starting with mine. Genuine, unfiltered truth about the messiness of human connection. Jason studied her thoughtfully. This is really about your daughter, isn't it? It started that way, Victoria acknowledged, but I think it could be meaningful for many users. We all have relationships we've damaged, bridges we wish we could rebuild. Slowly, the team began to warm to the idea. The marketing director suggested framing it as a challenge, the Truth Challenge, encouraging users to share their own experiences of disconnection and reconciliation. The product team proposed creating specialized templates for these narratives, with options to tag people users wanted to reconnect with. By the end of the meeting, what had begun as Victoria's personal mission had evolved into a platform-wide initiative with potential to generate significant engagement. We'll need to move quickly, Victoria told them as the meeting concluded. I want to launch within 48 hours. Later that day, Victoria sat alone in her office, drafting her post. It was the hardest thing she'd ever written, harder than business proposals or quarterly reports. Those required projections and data. This required excavating truth she'd spent years burying under achievements and accolades. She deleted and rewrote sentences multiple times, struggling to find the right balance between honesty and oversharing. After 2 hours, she had a draft. She felt captured the essence of her journey. Today, I'm starting the Sacred Truth in Tech Challenge with my own story. For 24 years, I've been the CEO of Harrington Tech and the mother of an extraordinary daughter. I excelled at one role and failed at the other. I built a company valued at billions while missing birthdays, school events, and everyday moments that can never be reclaimed. I justified my absence as providing for her future, modeling ambition, creating opportunities. But children don't need empires. They need presence. My daughter recently blocked me on every platform, a boundary I deserved after years of putting her second. My initial response was typically CEO-like. I acquired her favorite app. I tried to use power and money to solve a deeply personal problem, but somewhere in that misguided process, I began to truly see her for the first time, to understand that reconciliation can't be bought or forced, that it must be earned through genuine change and respect for boundaries. I'm sharing this not for sympathy or praise, but because authentic connection begins with truth, with acknowledging harm we've caused, intentionally or not, with vulnerability, rather than perfect social media narratives. Second Chance exists to facilitate real connection in a digital world, increasingly defined by performance and filters. Today, I'm challenging our users to share their own stories of disconnection and attempts at reconciliation using Tong Truth Challenge, because second chances begin with truth. Victoria's finger hovered over the post button. Once published, these words would be read by millions: colleagues, competitors, investors, employees. Her carefully maintained professional image would be forever altered. She pressed post. Within hours, the response was overwhelming. Victoria's message had struck a chord far beyond what she'd anticipated. Users began sharing their own stories of estrangement and reconciliation, from parents who had prioritized careers over children, children who had rejected imperfect parents, friends who had let misunderstandings fester until relationships fractured. The campaign spread beyond Second Chance to other platforms. Major news outlets picked up the story, framing it as either a brave act of transparency or a calculated PR move, depending on their editorial stance. Victoria ignored the media speculation, focusing instead on the genuine engagement happening on the platform. For the first time in her career, metrics and growth weren't her primary concern. She was more interested in the quality of connection being facilitated than the quantity of users being added. That evening, Marcus called with an update. Ellie hasn't publicly responded to your post, but she's been reading the Tanner Truth Challenge stories. Her account has been active for the past 3 hours. Victoria thanked him for the information, but didn't ask for details. She was learning to respect her daughter's space, to make herself available without imposing expectations. The Truth Challenge had taken on a life of its own. Beyond Victoria's original intention of reaching Ellie, it had become a movement about authentic connection in a digital age that often rewarded performance over honesty. Whether it would help heal her relationship with her daughter remained to be seen. But for perhaps the first time in her professional life, Victoria had taken a risk without calculating the return on investment, and somehow that felt like progress. Victoria's phone rang as she was leaving a board meeting 2 weeks after the Truth Challenge launch. The campaign had been wildly successful, generating unprecedented user engagement and positive press. Second Chance was being hailed as a pioneer in authentic social media, with major competitors scrambling to launch similar initiatives. None of that mattered to Victoria when she saw the caller ID. "Rosa, is everything all right?" she answered, immediately concerned. Rosa rarely called. "During business hours, everything is fine, Ms. Victoria," Rosa assured her. "I'm calling about Christmas." Victoria blinked in confusion. "Christmas? That's still weeks away." 3 weeks, Rosa corrected. "And you have no plans, as usual." The gentle rebuke was characteristic of Rosa's approach, direct but never unkind. For 15 years, she had managed Victoria's household with quiet efficiency, including the holidays Victoria typically treated as an afterthought. "I assumed I'd be working," Victoria admitted. Her standard Christmas involved conference calls, with international offices while Rosa prepared a holiday dinner she barely touched. "Not this year," Rosa said firmly. This year you will volunteer at the Riverside Shelter's Christmas dinner. They need helpers from 4 to 8. Victoria was so surprised by Rosa's directive tone that she didn't immediately respond. The shelter needs volunteers, Rosa continued into the silence. I've already given them your name. Rosa, I appreciate the thought, but Ms. Victoria, Rosa's voice softened. You asked me once how to reach Ellie. I told you to learn who she has become. This is part of that learning. Understanding dawned. Ellie volunteers at the shelter. Every Christmas for the past 3 years. Victoria's grip tightened on her phone. Does she know you're arranging this? No, and she may be angry when she sees you. Rosa paused. But sometimes, bridges need building from both sides. After they hung up, Victoria stood motionless in the hallway outside the boardroom, processing Rosa's intervention. The housekeeper had never overstepped her role like this before. The fact that she had done so now suggested she believed the situation warranted extraordinary measures. Victoria entered the date in her calendar, then hesitated over how to label it. In the past, she would have marked it as a personal obligation or charity commitment, the clinical language of someone fitting good deeds into a schedule optimized for productivity. Instead, she simply wrote, Christmas dinner, Riverside, on Christmas Eve. Victoria found herself standing outside a community center, in a part of the city she rarely visited. Snow fell gently, dusting her coat and hair. Through the windows, she could see volunteers setting up long tables and stringing colored lights. She almost turned back twice on the walk from her car. What if Ellie resented her presence? What if this intrusion into her volunteer work only widened the gap between them? But Rosa's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes bridges need building from both sides. Victoria pushed open the door and stepped inside. The community center was warm and chaotic, filled with volunteers unpacking food donations and arranging place settings. Christmas music played from portable speakers, occasionally drowned out by good-natured shouting as people coordinated their efforts. An older woman with a clipboard approached. Are you here to volunteer? Yes. Victoria Harrington. I believe I'm registered. The woman consulted her list. Ah, yes. Rosa called you in. We've got you on serving duty. She handed Victoria an apron and hairnet. Kitchen's through there. Marta will show you what to do. Victoria donned the unflattering items, feeling strangely vulnerable without her usual armor of designer clothing and executive authority. In this setting, her name and position meant nothing. She was just another pair of hands. The kitchen was a flurry of activity, steam rising from industrial-sized pots, volunteers chopping vegetables and arranging desserts on trays. Victoria stood uncertainly in the doorway until a harried-looking woman spotted her. New volunteer. Great. Wash your hands and start filling water glasses. 200 to do before doors open at 4. For the next hour, Victoria followed directions, without question. An unusual experience for someone accustomed to giving orders. She filled water glasses, arranged bread baskets, and helped carry trays of prepared food to warming stations. The work was simple but satisfying in its immediate purpose. Unlike her usual strategic decisions with long-term, abstract impacts, here she could see the direct result of her efforts. Tables prepared for people who would otherwise go without a Christmas meal. At 3:45, Victoria was arranging napkins when she heard a familiar voice behind her. Mom? She turned to find Ellie staring at her in disbelief, a box of candy canes in her arms. Hello, Ellie. Victoria fought the urge to explain or justify her presence. Merry Christmas. Ellie's eyes narrowed. What are you doing here? Volunteering. Like you. Since when do you volunteer at homeless shelters? Since Rosa signed me up. Victoria decided honesty was the best approach. She thought it might be good for me. For us. Ellie processed this, her expression unreadable. Rosa did this? Victoria nodded. She didn't tell you? No. Ellie set down the candy canes. Look, I appreciate the effort, but this is my space. My tradition. You can't just... Ladies, the coordinator's voice cut through their conversation. Doors open in 5 minutes. Save the chit-chat for later. Ellie, you're on the serving line. Victoria, you too. Right next to her. They exchanged glances. Ellie's frustrated, Victoria's apologetic, before moving to their assigned positions behind steaming trays of holiday food. I can switch with someone else, Victoria offered quietly. Ellie sighed. Just follow my lead, okay? These people come here for a good meal and kindness, not to witness family drama. Victoria nodded, grateful for even this small concession. The doors opened, and for the next 2 hours, they worked side by side, serving a steady stream of guests, families, with children, elderly individuals, people clearly living on the streets. Victoria followed Ellie's example, offering each person a genuine smile along with generous portions. She watched how naturally her daughter interacted with the guests, remembering names, asking about specific concerns, celebrating small victories. This wasn't perfunctory charity work. Ellie genuinely cared about these people. "More gravy, please," an elderly man requested, holding out his plate to Victoria. As she ladled the gravy, she noticed his worn coat and scuffed shoes. "Would you like extra potatoes as well?" she offered. "They're quite good." He smiled, revealing missing teeth. "You're new here, but just as kind as this one." He nodded toward Ellie. "Must run in the family." The simple comment, connecting them as family, suggesting they shared a quality, affected Victoria more deeply than she expected. She and Ellie exchanged a brief glance, a moment of unexpected connection. By the time the meal service ended, something had shifted between them. Not forgiveness or reconciliation exactly, but perhaps the beginning of a new understanding, forged not through grand gestures or carefully crafted apologies, but through shared purpose and simple, meaningful work. As they cleaned up afterward, Ellie finally spoke directly to Victoria. "You're not what I expected tonight." Victoria looked up from the table she was wiping down. "How so?" "You didn't try to take over, didn't suggest more efficient ways to do things. Just helped." Ellie shrugged. It was nice. From Ellie, this qualified as high praise. Victoria accepted it with a simple, "Thank you." When they finished, they found themselves walking out together into the snowy night. The awkwardness returned without the buffer of work to focus on. "Do you need a ride?" Victoria offered, gesturing toward her car. Ellie shook her head. "I'm meeting friends after this." "Of course," Victoria nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. "Well, Merry Christmas, Ellie." As she turned to go, Ellie called after her. "Mom, the hospital's having a New Year's party for the kids. If you wanted to... Zoe's been asking about you." The invitation was hesitant, conditional, but it was an invitation nonetheless. "I'd like that," Victoria said softly. "Very much." As they parted ways in the gently falling snow, Victoria silently thanked Rosa for her wisdom. Sometimes bridges did need building from both sides, and sometimes they were built not through grand gestures, but through simple acts of service, side by side. The pediatric oncology wing had been transformed. Stars hung from the ceiling, twinkling. Lights wrapped around nurses' stations, and a magnificent tree stood in the corner of the playroom, surrounded by carefully wrapped gifts. Victoria stood in the doorway, a large bag of additional presents in hand, feeling oddly nervous. "Ms. Harrington," Dr. Adams approached with a warm smile. "Thank you for your generous donation. The children are thrilled." Victoria had anonymously funded the entire Christmas celebration. Decorations, gifts, catering, entertainment, after learning the hospital's holiday budget had been cut. But Dr. Adams had figured out the source. "I'm happy to help," Victoria said. "Is Ellie here yet?" "In the craft room, helping some of the children make snowflakes." Dr. Adams gestured down the hall. "She doesn't know you're behind all this, by the way. We respected your wish for anonymity." Victoria nodded gratefully. Her relationship with Ellie remained fragile, each interaction a careful negotiation of boundaries. The Christmas Eve shelter dinner had been a tentative first step toward reconciliation, followed by Ellie's hesitant invitation to this event. Victoria didn't want to jeopardize their progress by appearing to buy her way into her daughter's good graces. She made her way to the craft room, pausing outside to observe unnoticed. Ellie sat at a table surrounded by children, demonstrating how to fold and cut paper into intricate snowflake patterns. Her face was animated as she helped a small boy with his scissors, her laughter blending with the children's. Among them was Zoe, the little girl Victoria had met on her first visit. Her condition had clearly deteriorated. She was thinner, her movements more careful, but her spirit remained undimmed as she created the most elaborate snowflake at the table. Victoria watched a moment longer, savoring this glimpse of her daughter's world, before stepping into the room. "Mom," Ellie looked up, surprise and something less definable crossing her face. "You came. I said I would." Victoria set down her bag of gifts. "Need another volunteer?" Before Ellie could respond, Zoe spotted Victoria and waved excitedly. "You came back! Look at my snowflake. It has 8 points instead of 6. It's beautiful," Victoria said, moving to the little girl's side. Very mathematically advanced, Zoe beamed. That's what Ellie said too. You both talk the same. The observation drew a small smile from Ellie. Pull up a chair, Mom. We need help with the younger kids. For the next hour, Victoria immersed herself in craft making with the children, following Ellie's lead and enjoying the simple pleasure of creating something with her hands. It had been years since she'd done anything so uncomplicated. No strategic objectives, no profit margins, just paper and scissors and children's delight. As the afternoon progressed, the party moved to the main playroom for the gift distribution. A staff member dressed as Santa arrived, and the children's excitement reached fever pitch. Victoria. Ellie appeared at her side, speaking quietly. Dr. Adams told me you funded all this. Victoria tensed. I asked her to keep that confidential. She did mostly. Just told me when I commented on how much more elaborate it was than usual. Ellie's expression was complicated. Not angry, but not entirely comfortable either. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want you to think I was trying to buy my way in. Ellie considered this. The old you would have made sure everyone knew. Would have turned it into a PR opportunity. I'm trying not to be the old me. Their conversation was interrupted by Zoe, who rushed over clutching a beautifully wrapped package. Look what Santa brought me. It's exactly what I wished for. She tore open the paper to reveal a telescope. Compact but high quality. Designed for a child but not a toy. Now I can see the stars even when I can't go outside. Zoe explained, her face radiant. The nurse said I can set it up by my window. Victoria and Ellie exchanged glances. Neither had known about the telescope. That's wonderful, Zoe, Ellie said, helping the girl open the box. We can learn the constellations together. Will you both help me? Zoe asked, looking between them. Ellie knows the stories about the stars, but you probably know the science stuff, right? Since you make computers and things? Victoria felt a lump form in her throat at being included so naturally in this child's plans. This child who might not have many stargazing nights left. I'd be honored, she managed. Later, as the party wound down and tired children returned to their rooms, Victoria found herself helping Zoe set up her telescope. The little girl's room had a perfect view of the winter sky, now darkening as evening fell. Can you see anything yet? Victoria asked, adjusting the focus. Zoe peered through the eyepiece. Stars. So many stars. She stepped back. Your turn, then Ellie's. Victoria looked through the telescope, making an appreciative sound before stepping aside for her daughter. As Ellie took her turn, Victoria noticed how gently she interacted with Zoe, how naturally she balanced honesty about the girl's condition with genuine optimism. You're good with her, Victoria said softly as they left Zoe's room later, the little girl having finally succumbed to sleep with the telescope positioned by her bed. She makes it easy, Ellie replied. She's never wanted pity, just presence. The words hung between them, weighted with unspoken parallels. They walked together toward the elevator, the hospital quieting around them as visiting hours ended. Thank you, Ellie said suddenly, for the party, for not making it about you. It wasn't about me, Victoria replied. It was about those children, about Zoe. Ellie nodded, pressing the elevator button. I've been thinking about your truth challenge post, about what you said regarding presence versus providing. Victoria waited, not wanting to interrupt whatever her daughter was processing. I always thought you chose work over me because it mattered more to you, Ellie continued. But I'm starting to wonder if maybe you just didn't know how to be present, if maybe no one taught you how. The insight was so unexpectedly compassionate that Victoria found herself blinking back tears. No one did, she acknowledged. My parents were distant in their way, career-focused. I thought I was giving you something better by ensuring your financial security. Money isn't love, Mom. I know that now. Victoria hesitated. I'm trying to learn what is. The elevator arrived, doors sliding open with a soft chime. They stepped inside together. Coffee? Ellie suggested as they reached the lobby. There's a decent place across the street. We could talk a bit more. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even reconciliation. Not fully. But as they walked together, into the cold December night, Victoria felt something she hadn't experienced in years. The quiet joy of simply being invited into her daughter's presence, with no agenda except connection. The conference room fell silent as Victoria concluded her presentation. The executive team exchanged glances, clearly processing the magnitude of what she'd just proposed. You want to transfer majority ownership of Second Chance to a nonprofit foundation, Jason Chen finally said, stating it plainly to ensure he'd understood. Victoria nodded. The Second Chance Foundation would control 60% of the platform, with a mandate to preserve its focus on authentic connection and social. Good. And the remaining 40%? Asked the CFO, already calculating implications. Would remain with Harrington Tech, ensuring we maintain a financial stake in the platform's success, while relinquishing controlling interest. Marcus, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, leaned forward. Victoria, while I appreciate the philanthropic intent, this is a multi-billion-dollar asset. The board will have serious concerns. I've anticipated those concerns. Victoria distributed a second set of documents. These projections show how this structure actually protects long-term value by preventing the platform from being corrupted by short-term profit pressures. The meeting continued for nearly 2 hours, diving deep into financial, legal, and strategic implications. Victoria had prepared thoroughly, addressing each objection with data and reasoned arguments, but beneath the business justifications lay a deeper motivation she didn't articulate to the team. Later, as she and Marcus walked back to her office, he finally asked the question directly. This is about Ellie, isn't it? Victoria paused before responding. Partially, but it's also about integrity, about ensuring Second Chance remains true to its mission, rather than becoming just another data harvesting platform. Those goals aren't mutually exclusive. No, Victoria agreed. But they do sometimes conflict. This structure ensures the mission won't be compromised when they do. Marcus studied her with newfound respect. You've changed these past few months. I'm trying to, she acknowledged. The board meeting the following week was predictably contentious. Several members objected strenuously to what they viewed as Victoria giving away a valuable corporate asset. She weathered their criticism calmly, making her case with the same persuasive force she'd always brought to business decisions. Gentlemen, ladies, she concluded, this isn't a charitable impulse. It's a strategic repositioning that aligns our business model with our platform's core value proposition. Authenticity isn't just a marketing claim for Second Chance. It's our fundamental competitive advantage. After much debate, the board approved the plan with certain modifications. Victoria had won her most challenging corporate battle not by acquiring an asset, but by relinquishing control of one. 2 days later, she sat in a small cafe near Ellie's university, waiting for her daughter to arrive. Their relationship had evolved cautiously since the hospital Christmas party. Occasional texts, 2 coffee meetings, even 1 dinner. Each interaction remained carefully circumscribed, focused on neutral topics or Zoe's declining health. Today felt different. Victoria had asked specifically to discuss Second Chance, crossing the unspoken boundary between their personal relationship and her business decisions. Ellie arrived precisely on time, unwinding a scarf as she slid into the booth, opposite Victoria. Hey, thank you for coming. Victoria pushed a mug of hot chocolate toward her daughter, a childhood favorite she'd remembered. You said it was important. Ellie wrapped her hands around the mug, but didn't drink. Something about the app? Victoria nodded, choosing her words. Carefully. I'm restructuring ownership of Second Chance, transferring controlling interest to a nonprofit foundation dedicated to maintaining its mission of authentic connection. Ellie's expression revealed nothing. Why? Because some things shouldn't be controlled by profit motives, because the platform has become something meaningful to many people, something that should be protected. And you're telling me this because Victoria took a deep breath. Because I'd like you to consider joining the foundation's board to help shape the platform's future direction. Ellie's eyebrows shot up in genuine surprise. Me? I don't know anything about running a tech platform. You understand its core purpose better than most, using technology to facilitate genuine, human connection rather than replace it. Victoria leaned forward. Your perspective would be invaluable, especially with your background in psychology. Ellie stirred her hot chocolate, clearly processing the offer. This feels like another attempt to pull me into your world. Actually, it's my attempt to respect yours, Victoria countered gently. You've chosen a path focused on helping others, on authentic connection. I'm not asking you to abandon that for corporate interests. I'm trying to align my business with those same values, and if I say no, then the offer remains open, no pressure. The foundation will be established regardless, and I'll still transfer controlling interest. Victoria met her daughter's gaze directly. This isn't conditional, Ellie. I'm not trying to buy your involvement or your forgiveness. Ellie studied her mother's face, searching for hidden agendas. You're really giving up control of a multi-billion-dollar company? Controlling interest in one platform? Yes. Harrington Tech remains mine. Victoria smiled slightly. I'm evolving, not having. A complete personality transplant. This drew a small laugh from Ellie. A rare, precious sound. Fair enough. She took a sip of her hot chocolate. I'll think about it. The board position. I'm not saying yes, but I'll consider it. That's all I'm asking. They sat in companionable silence for a moment. Perhaps the first truly comfortable silence they'd shared in years. There's something else, Victoria said finally. Zoe's condition has worsened significantly. Ellie's expression fell. I know. The doctors give her weeks. Maybe a month. She mentioned wanting to see stars through her telescope that aren't visible from her hospital window. Real stars. Not just city ones. She talks about that a lot. Wishes she could go to the country. See the Milky Way. Ellie sighed. But she's too fragile to transport that far now. Victoria hesitated, then forged ahead. What if we brought the stars to her? With advanced projection technology, we could create an immersive celestial experience in her hospital room. Ellie considered. That might actually work. It wouldn't be the same as the real thing, but it would be something special. Something just for her. You'd do that. For a child you barely know? Victoria reached across the table, not quite touching Ellie's hand, but close. For a child who matters to you. For a child who deserves magic in whatever time she has left. Ellie's eyes glistened. Thank you. As they began planning Zoe's stargazing experience, something subtle shifted between them. They weren't just mother and daughter cautiously reconnecting. They were partners in a shared purpose. Their complementary strengths aligned toward something meaningful. It wasn't the relationship Victoria had once envisioned. It was something new, something still forming. But for the first time, she could imagine a future where they were genuinely part of each other's lives. Not on her terms or even on Ellie's, but on terms they created together. The notification appeared on Victoria's phone during a budget meeting. A simple alert that would have seemed trivial to anyone else. Ellie Harrington has added you on second chance. Victoria stared at the screen, momentarily losing track of the CFO's presentation. After months of careful rebuilding, Ellie had finally unblocked her. The digital wall between them had been lowered, if not completely dismantled. Victoria, Marcus prompted gently, noticing her distraction. I'm sorry, she said, setting her phone down. Please continue. She maintained her professional composure throughout the remainder of the meeting, but her thoughts kept returning to that simple notification. Not because social media connection mattered in itself, but because of what it represented. A willingness to let Victoria see parts of her life again, to be visible to each other in this small but significant way. Later, that afternoon, Victoria opened the app, navigating to Ellie's profile with a strange nervousness. The page loaded, revealing photos and posts previously hidden from her view. Ellie at the children's hospital, at school events, with friends Victoria had never met. A digital chronicle of the years they'd spent disconnected. She scrolled carefully, not wanting to accidentally like old posts and appear to be stalking her daughter's history. But she couldn't help lingering on certain images. Ellie receiving an academic award, Ellie laughing with Rosa during a visit to the penthouse Victoria hadn't known about, Ellie sitting beside Zoe's hospital bed reading a book of constellation, myths. These glimpses into her daughter's world felt like precious gifts. Victoria resisted the urge to comment or react, understanding that access didn't automatically grant her the right to active participation. Ellie had opened a door. It was up to Victoria to respect the threshold. Her phone chimed with a text message. I unblocked you. Figured it was time. Victoria typed and deleted several responses before settling on simple honesty. Thank you. It means a lot to me. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again as Ellie composed her reply. Coffee tomorrow? The usual place at 3? I'll be there. Victoria responded, a smile touching her lips. The usual place was the small cafe near Ellie's university, where they'd met several times since the hospital Christmas party. It had become their neutral territory, neither Victoria's corporate world nor Ellie's academic one, but somewhere in between. When Victoria arrived the next day, Ellie was already waiting, 2 cups on the table. I ordered for you, Ellie said, as Victoria sat down. Black, 1 sugar. The fact that her daughter remembered how she took her coffee shouldn't have felt significant, but it did. Thank you. They sat in silence for a moment, the ambient cafe noise filling the space between them. Victoria waited, sensing Ellie had something specific to discuss. I've decided to accept the foundation board position, Ellie finally said. With conditions. Victoria nodded, careful to contain her excitement. I'm listening. I'll serve as a regular board member, not in any special capacity. My voice will be equal to others, not elevated because of our relationship. Ellie stirred her tea. And this is a professional commitment, separate from our personal relationship. One doesn't leverage the other. Agreed, absolutely. And finally, Ellie continued, meeting Victoria's gaze directly, I want to focus the Foundation's first major initiative on digital well-being for children of high-achieving parents, using technology to strengthen real-world connections rather than substitute for them. Victoria recognized the significance of this request. Ellie was channeling her own experience into something constructive, something that might help others navigate the challenges they had faced. That's a perfect direction, Victoria said. We can allocate whatever resources you need. I don't need your resources, Ellie clarified. The Foundation has its own. What I need is your respect for my professional judgment, even when it differs. From yours, you'll have it, Victoria promised. The whole point of the Foundation is to prioritize mission over corporate interests, including mine. Ellie seemed satisfied with this answer. She took a sip of her tea before continuing. There's something else. About Zoe. Victoria's expression softened. How is she? Not good. Days, maybe a week. Ellie's voice caught slightly. The star projection was... It was everything. You should have seen her face when the Milky Way appeared. On her ceiling, she said it was like swimming in stardust. I'm glad it brought her joy. She's been asking for you. Ellie met Victoria's eyes. Would you visit her? Soon? The request took Victoria by surprise. Of course. Anytime. Tomorrow morning? I usually go before classes, around 8. I'll be there. They finished their coffee, conversation shifting to more ordinary topics. Ellie's studies, Victoria's latest projects, a funny story about Rosa trying to teach Marcus to make proper flan. The ease between them was new, fragile, but genuine. As they were preparing to leave, Ellie's phone chimed with a text. She checked it, her expression falling. Everything okay? Victoria asked. It's my roommate. Our apartment building lost heat, and maintenance says it won't be fixed until tomorrow afternoon at the earliest. With the temperature dropping tonight, she sighed. I'll figure something out. Victoria hesitated, then offered carefully. You could stay at the penthouse. Your room is always ready. Ellie looked up, surprise evident in her expression. My room? Rosa keeps it prepared. Just in case. Victoria kept her tone casual, not wanting to pressure. The offer stands if you need it. No strings. Ellie seemed to wrestle with the decision. Just for tonight, she finally said. Because of the heat situation, of course. They traveled to the penthouse separately, Victoria understanding that Ellie needed to maintain certain boundaries. When her daughter arrived, Rosa welcomed her with barely concealed delight, fussing over her in a way that Ellie allowed with good-natured patience. I've made your favorite chicken soup, Rosa announced, and there are fresh towels in your bathroom. You didn't have to go to all this trouble, Ellie protested. It's no trouble, Rosa insisted. It's what I do. Victoria maintained a respectful distance, letting Ellie settle in without hovering. Later, as they ate Rosa's soup in the kitchen rather than the formal dining room, conversation flowed with surprising ease. Ellie shared stories about her studies, her volunteer work, her research plans. Victoria listened more than she spoke, savoring this glimpse into her daughter's world. After dinner, Ellie paused at the threshold of her childhood bedroom, running her fingers along the doorframe. It's exactly the same. I couldn't change it, Victoria admitted. It was my connection to you, even when you weren't here. Ellie nodded, understanding. Good night, Mom. Good night, Ellie. The next morning, Victoria woke to find a text message sent at 3:17 a.m. Can't sleep. Meet me in the kitchen if you're up. She found Ellie at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of tea, staring out at the pre-dawn city. Insomnia? Victoria asked softly, pouring herself coffee. Ellie nodded, thinking about Zoe, about time, how little of it we sometimes get. Victoria sat across from her daughter, the early morning darkness creating an intimacy that had been absent from their recent, carefully structured interactions. I've been thinking about something you said months ago, Ellie continued, about second chances not being about erasing the past, but about creating a different future. I believe that, Victoria said. I'm still angry sometimes, Ellie admitted. About the years we lost, the relationship we might have had. I understand, but I'm also tired of defining myself in opposition to you, of letting resentment shape my choices. Ellie met her mother's gaze. I don't know exactly what our relationship looks like going forward. I just know I'm ready to find out. As dawn broke over the city, lighting the kitchen in soft gold, Victoria recognized this moment for what it was. Not an ending or even a resolution, but a beginning. A true second chance. Not granted or taken, but created together. 1 year later, Victoria stood at the back of a university auditorium, watching as graduates in caps and gowns filed across the stage. The psychology department's ceremony was smaller than the main commencement, allowing her to easily spot Ellie. Among the candidates waiting for their names to be called, Ellie Harrington, Master of Science in Clinical Psychology, with highest distinction, the dean announced. Victoria felt her chest tighten with pride as Ellie crossed the stage, accepting her diploma with a graceful bow of her head. In the front row, Michael and his family applauded enthusiastically. Victoria had deliberately chosen a seat at the back, not wanting to intrude on their celebration, but close enough to witness this milestone she would have missed in her old life. As Ellie returned to her seat, she scanned the auditorium, her gaze finding Victoria. A small smile, a slight nod, acknowledgement of her mother's presence. Acceptance of it. Victoria returned the smile, blinking back unexpected tears. After the ceremony, Victoria waited in the reception hall, giving Ellie time with her father and his family before approaching. She watched from a distance as Michael hugged his daughter, as the twins presented her with handmade cards, as his wife took photos of them all together. When Ellie finally made her way to Victoria, her graduation cap was slightly askew, her smile tired but genuine. "You came," she said simply. "I wouldn't have missed it," Victoria replied. They embraced briefly, still somewhat awkward, still learning the physical language of their new relationship, but genuine in their effort. "Congratulations, Dr. Harrington," Victoria said, handing Ellie a small gift box. "Not a doctor yet," Ellie corrected. "That's the next degree, which you've already been accepted to." Victoria couldn't keep the pride from her voice. "Top program in the country." Ellie opened the gift. A delicate silver pendant in the shape of a prism, rainbow colors glinting within the crystal. "It's beautiful," she said softly, recognizing the symbolism immediately. "To remind you of how many facets you contain," Victoria explained, "and how light changes as it passes through experience." Later, they shared a quiet dinner at a restaurant Ellie had chosen. Not the exclusive establishment Victoria might once have selected, but a small, family-owned place with excellent food and no pretension. "The foundation approved my proposal," Ellie mentioned as they waited for dessert. "Full funding for the Digital Connection program for isolated children. That's wonderful," Victoria said. "Your research is compelling. It builds on my thesis work with Zoe and the other children at Metropolitan." Ellie's expression softened with memory. "She taught me so much in such a short time." They both fell silent, remembering. Zoe had passed away 3 months after the star projection night, peacefully and surrounded by love. Her telescope now stood in the children's hospital playroom, tagged with a small plaque bearing her name and favorite quote about stardust. "I've been thinking about next steps," Ellie continued after a moment. "For the foundation, for my research. I'm listening. I want to create a residential summer program for children of high-achieving parents. A place where they can develop connection skills, emotional intelligence, things that often get overlooked in achievement-focused families." Victoria nodded, understanding the origins of this vision. "It sounds meaningful. I'd like your input," Ellie said, surprising Victoria. "Not just as a foundation board member, but as someone who understands the corporate mindset, how to reach parents who think they're doing the right thing by focusing on success markers." "I'd be honored to help," Victoria said, touched by the invitation into her daughter's professional world. As they finished their meal, conversation shifted to more personal matters. Ellie's new apartment closer to campus, Victoria's decision to step back from day-to-day operations at Harrington Tech to focus on strategic direction. "You're really working only 40 hours a week now?" Ellie asked skeptically. "Closer to 50, Victoria admitted with a smile. "But down from 80. Progress, not perfection." Outside the restaurant, they paused before parting ways. The evening air was warm, the sky clear enough to see a few stars despite the city lights. "Brunch on Sunday?" Ellie suggested. "Rosa's making that Spanish tortilla you like. I'll be there." The casual invitation, evidence of regular contact, of a developing rhythm to their relationship, meant more to Victoria than any business success ever had. Later that night, Victoria sat on her penthouse balcony, looking out at the city lights. Her phone chimed with a notification from Second Chance. Ellie had posted a photo from graduation. Victoria opened the app to find a picture of the two of them together. Ellie in her cap and gown, Victoria standing beside her with unmistakable pride. The caption read simply, "Some journeys take unexpected detours. Grateful for second chances and new beginnings. Class of 2026. Second chances." Victoria smiled at the public acknowledgement, not because she needed external validation, but because it represented how far they'd come. From estrangement to tentative connection, from wounds to healing, from loss to something new and precious. She opened her private messaging app, the only social media tool she used regularly now. Ellie's contact was at the top of her list. Their daily exchanges evidence of a relationship being carefully, intentionally rebuilt. Victoria typed a simple message, "So proud of you today. Not for the achievements, but for the person you've become. Despite my mistakes, thank you for the second chance." Ellie's response came moments later. "Still learning, both of us. See you Sunday." Victoria closed her eyes. The heart emoji, the first Ellie had ever sent her, warming something deep within her chest. There would still be difficult moments ahead, old patterns to unlearn, new boundaries to respect. Their relationship would never be what it might have been without those years of distance, but it would be something real, something earned, something neither of them took for granted, a true second chance.